Hi, everybody. Welcome to this edition of my Hot Topic video. Today, I am talking about language facilitation in bilingual families. If this is the first time you're joining me, welcome so much to my video. My name is Marcy Melzer, and I am an intuitive speech and language pathologist. And I help parents teach their late talking children how to use the words they need to share their wisdom with the world. And I do that in my Waves of Communication parent coaching program. I also do it here on my Waves of Communication page and also on my YouTube channel. So you can check out information over there. There are more than 100 videos uploaded with tons of information on language facilitation. But today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about working in 2 languages or even potentially more. I have been doing my online coaching here for a little over a year, and I have families in 10 different countries who are working with language facilitation with their kids. Some of them are living in their home countries like Sweden, where they speak English as well as Swedish, and other families are living in countries that aren't their home countries. For example, I have families who are living in Australia and they're from Bangladesh. I have families living in Switzerland and they're from the UK and Italy. So it happens often, especially people who are in that Eurozone. You might be traveling not very far and new languages are spoken all the time. So it's very common for families to be blended with all kinds of different language interventions, especially depending on where you live. And so it's very common for parents to approach me with late talking children who are speaking more than one language. And sometimes parents aren't sure what to do in managing all of that. So it's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about on a Hot Topic video. So what I'm going to do first is tell you a little bit about bilingualism and how common it is. It's actually very common here in the United States. There are 24% of children between 5 is when they're, I guess they give them above that age is where I've been able to find statistics. So kids over 5 years old in the United States between 5 and 11 are speaking 2 languages in the public schools. That's where they found out that information. And in California, so it varies by state. In California, there's as many as 44% of children who are speaking 2 languages. And in the lowest happens to be Virginia, where they only 7% of the kids there speak different languages. But it varies widely. Here in Florida, we have a very high percentage of families who speak Spanish and English because we have a real significant population of immigrants who have come into Florida. So there's lots and lots of families all over the world who are using more than one language for many different reasons. Maybe you've moved to a country where they're speaking a language that isn't native to you, or maybe you have a blended family where parents are from 2 different countries and maybe you and or your parents speak different languages. And it happens all over in the United States. We've got people here from everywhere. So what you need to understand is it's not a problem for kids to be late talking. With that many late talking children, it makes perfect sense that parents are running into late talking as well. So, you know, because only more actually than 1 in 10 children is late talking for whatever reason, many different reasons. But the reasons that kids are late talking are not typically because they are bilingual. Just bilingualism itself, just teaching a child more than one language, does not cause a child to be delayed in speech development. So that's one of the other things that I wanted to let you know. There are a lot of late talkers who are bilingual all over the world, in the country and all different parts of the world. And it's not the fact that there are more than one language in your household that is the cause of their late talking. In fact, the families who I've worked with in my program all have late talking kids, and they all have been able to get them communicating in both languages. So that's the one thing I wanted to let you know for sure, is that if you have a late talking child, it definitely is not something you should give up, because bilingualism is amazing for kids. And if you are motivated to teach your child more than one language, there are a lot of good reasons about it. Here are a few. The first is that your child will be able to communicate with everyone in your family. So if you've got parents who, even if they live abroad with all the great technology with video phoning and things like that, Skype, you can let your child be able to have experiences and communicate with everyone in their family. Then the other reason that it is good to teach your children both languages if they are late talking is because a late talker typically has fallen into some nonverbal or limited verbal communication patterns instead of using natural English as it should be. And what happens with families when they don't teach both of the language, like say you're using both languages in your household, maybe English and Spanish, but you decide not to teach your child the Spanish, but only work on English because maybe you're living in the United States and you decide that it will be easier. Then the problem happens for your child is you facilitate language in English and your child learns to use English. They do make the shift from the nonverbal communication patterns they're having into using the language that you're facilitating if it's English. If you don't facilitate the other language, if it's Spanish or whatever, your child, you're speaking in your house, whoever speaks Spanish regularly in your child's world is going to cause your child to slip back into those nonverbal communication patterns, because that's what they're using, because they're not effective in speaking at all in any language. If they're late talking, they're using their gestures, behaviors, echolalia, whatever kind of things they're using to communicate. And if you're only speaking English to them, but you're still speaking Spanish maybe to your partner or to other people or to your parents, or you watch Spanish TV, things like that, so your child's exposed to that other language, but you're not facilitating it, then it's going to cause your child, with whoever they're communicating with in the other language, to slip back into those nonverbal communication patterns. So it's really, really important that if you are speaking more than one language in your house, even if you only speak it with your husband or your wife, because just in your home you're the only ones, or there's no one else in your community who speaks your language, but you're still using it in your home between yourselves, but you're not teaching it to your child, then they're finding their own way to learn it. They're still listening to you. They're still, paying attention when you're talking, but they're not going to be able to understand and get it clearly unless you facilitate it the same way you facilitate the first language you teach them. So that's the next reason. And then the third reason that it's really smart to teach your child two languages is because kids who are bilingual are naturally more creative. They're really good at figuring out how to shift in their communication between one language and another. And late talking kids are learning to shift from their nonverbal communication language that they made up, even though it's not words, it's still language, it's still communication. And they're trying to shift into using English or language or verbal speech in whatever language you're speaking. And they don't know how to make that shift between one language to another. That's what language facilitation does, is it helps you teach your child how to shift from one language, their made-up language, in a nonverbal kid's case, into verbal speech in whatever language you're facilitating. And your child learns that ability to shift between languages when they become bilingual. So late talking kids are actually very good at learning two languages because they're already used to shifting. They have to learn how it is that they communicate with their communication partner to make sure they understand their wants and needs, and whoever's facilitating that language can help them do it. So it helps them creatively shift between languages when kids learn to be bilingual. And that is a skill that they'll use forever and ever in life. Really, really good. All right, so a few other tips that I just wanted to share with you before I get out of here for today is to let you know, once again, bilingualism itself does not cause speech delay at all. In fact, using two languages to teach a child helps them learn to use new language. And a late talker, that's what they have to learn, right? They don't know how to use language properly, and you as a parent can teach them how to do that. Second one, late talkers can definitely learn two language. I'm going to tell you about two different case studies really quick about families who have done it. The first is the family I told you about. They live in Australia, way down here. They, on my map behind me, they are from Bangladesh. They actually lived in Switzerland for a little while because the dad of the family is a contractor, and he tends to go live for a few months or a few years in a different country to help with project development of whatever he does in his field, computer stuff, I think. And they are called to move every few years. This is very common for families who are expats, right? So they speak Bengali at home, but then they lived in a country in Switzerland where they speak primarily German and English, and then they moved to the United States, or not the United States, to Australia, where they speak Australian English and British English. And they also, in their family, still speak Bengali because their family is from Bangladesh. So their parents and all of their relatives and stuff are. So the parents speak Bengali between them, and they use Bengali with their family on Skype and phone and things like that. So their late talker was 5 years old, and they were teaching him English because they lived in Australia, but not really focusing on Bengali because he wasn't even really responding in English when they were teaching him. Fast forward now, that little guy is speaking. That was about 7 months ago when they started in the program. Now their little guy is speaking both Bengali and English, using the same kind of language, natural language, having conversational exchange in both languages. And it's because I gave them specific tips and strategies in how to facilitate both languages. And when they learned how to facilitate English in a way that helps their child really understand all of the words they're saying in English, it was easy for them to use the same kinds of strategies when they were teaching their child in Bengali as well. And they taught their little guy how to focus and listen to the speech that they were using, because he wasn't very good at that before. He was very highly distracted by different things. And so when his parents learned how to facilitate and get him to focus on the language they were speaking, it was easy for them to teach him English and Bengali sort of at the same time. The Bengali just came because their son started paying attention and teaching them, and they just used the same kinds of strategies. All right, so, and then the other family that I have is a family that lives in the United States. Mom is from South America and dad is from the United States, and in their home they have a housekeeper who speaks Spanish, and they've spent a lot of time, even the mom's parents who from South America lived with them too. So they live in the United States, where everywhere on TV and videos and at the store and at the preschool, all of those places, the kids were hearing English, and from dad, who doesn't speak much Spanish. And then they were also hearing quite a bit of Spanish from mom and their daycare provider and grandparents, right? So hearing both languages a lot with their child. And he was a late talker, learning to speak sort of single words in both languages, hearing them a lot. But that family needed to know strategies on how to integrate and teach their child to use the language with each of the people who they would be speaking with, because you don't necessarily speak the same way to your mom as you do to your teacher at school or your daycare provider, especially if they're using different languages. So they needed some specific strategies, and it worked very famously for them as well. Now their little guy is fluent in both Spanish and English, and his mom's been able to work on even facilitating some articulation patterns with them that are both different in Spanish and English, but their little guy understands the corrections that she's making, so that not only is she teaching her child to use more words in both languages, but using these strategies to teach her child how to say the words clearly in both languages. Because if a child's maybe late talking because of ear infections, in the majority of the cases, this first speech that they come out with is not very clear because they haven't heard it very clearly. And this parent was able to help listen to her child and learn how to facilitate in both languages, to have clear articulation in both. So it's most definitely possible, and it's happening all over the world. 10 different countries. My family in Sweden, their primary language is Swedish, and they speak English a lot in their country, and they learn from me in English because I don't speak Swedish, and then they turned around, so they're facilitating Spanish, or not Spanish, they're facilitating Swedish with their child. I have a family in Macedonia. They speak primarily Macedonian with their child, but also English, and their child also hears Greek and other languages because they travel a lot. In Macedonia, there's countries right next to each other that speak different languages. So kids who live in those Eurozone areas where there's lots of different kinds of language spoken, that it's not impossible for your kids to learn to speak both languages, and they most definitely can do it, okay? Let's see. I talked about sound problems. Sound problems can happen in both languages, and it's really important for you as a parent to learn the strategies to teach them how to correct their speech in both languages. And then the one more thing, the last thing I wanted to let you know before I move into the advice about my tips is to let you know that as kids do learn languages, for them to mix the languages is very natural. So late talkers who are going from nonverbal to verbal speech will mix nonverbal and verbal behaviors. So they'll say things like, "It hurts," while they're pointing. So they won't say like, "My arm hurts," but they'll say, "It hurts," while they point. It's a combination of the nonverbal and the verbal speech. The same thing happens when kids are learning speech bilingually. They might mix up the words. In Florida here, we call it Spanglish because there's a lot of folks who speak Spanish here, and they might say, "Yo quiero apple," which means I want apple in English, but manzana is the Spanish word. So instead of saying "Yo quiero manzana," they say "Yo quiero apple," or "I want leche," you know, so they might mix them together, and that is perfectly normal. So this video today, I talked about some different ideas that you need to understand about bilingual families doing language facilitation. It's definitely something that you want to consider. If you consider teaching your child 2 languages and they're a late talker, don't shy away. It's really, really important, especially if there are different people in your family who are speaking multiple languages. Now, if you do have a bilingual late talker in your household, I know it's kind of an oxymoron. They're not really a talker yet if they're bilingual, but if you're used 2 languages in your household and you have a late talker, I guess is a better way for me to say that. Tomorrow's tip of the week video, I'm going to be providing you with 6 different strategies that I use with parents in my Waves of Communication program to help them with their language facilitation, considering using both languages. And that's going to be tomorrow in my Language Facilitation Resources group. That's where I post all my tip of the week videos, and that's where you can go to learn more about specific strategies that you can use in your home to help you with your late talker. And if if you are a member of my group and you've been trying these strategies and they're working for you okay, or you're confused about them, or you really want to know the exact strategies for you and you want a custom program, that's when you want to reach out to me and talk to me more about my Waves of Communication Parent Coaching Program. And that is where I literally look at what is going on in your family, how many kids, how much time you have, all the different things about your life that make your family and your household unique. And then what I do is I design a custom plan with the exact language facilitation strategies you need to help your child learn to use words during your everyday activities, the activities that you do, not brand new stuff that you have to break down and do, buy new things, whatever. I teach you how to facilitate language with your child using whatever language you're using in all the times that you already interact with your child, from the time they wake up in the morning till the time they go to bed at night, when you're driving in the car, when you're cooking food, when you're getting dressed, when you're cleaning up. All the different things that you do every day while your kids are around are opportunities for you to do language facilitation. And every family's situation looks different. So that's why I designed this. Instead of being a cookie cutter program that everybody can use, it is a custom program that the plans are designed for each family. And once you learn how, see, this is what happens to parents. Once you learn how to integrate those strategies into your life, then you're off. You're good. You don't need to have a speech therapist working with your child to help fix their speech because you learn how to do it yourself. And the intervention never ends because you as parents continue to do the strategies. And in my lifetime program, you can get strategies as long as you need until your child is a chatterbox using all the speech and language that you want them to be using at their very best. And it doesn't matter why your child is late talking, no matter what's going on, you as parents are the best language facilitators, but you have to know the right strategies that are going to work for you in your family, in your world, to be able to help you see the success that you want with your late talking child. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining this video. I really appreciate all of the likes you have, so please like this video, share it with your friends, and other groups or whatever that you think, anybody who you think needs to know information about how to help their late talking child, have them check out these videos because parents all over the world are doing it, and you are the best ones to be able to get your child using the language they need. All right, everybody, thanks again for joining me today. I'll see you all on my next live video.